Hello, good morning, and welcome to the Comix Experience Kids Club meeting for the August 2017 book, which is the wonderful Glister by Andi Watson. And we have Andi here via the intertubes.
That's right, just about, more or less.
Yep. He made it. He made it. Yay! So, yay, Andi. Everybody loved the book, right? Good book? Make some noise? Yeah. There you go. There's some noise. There's some noise. All right.
That's a relief.
Yeah, it's a little slower than usual because school just started, and I think people were distracted by school. But yeah, I wanted to thank you for coming and talking to us about Glister and about your career. I think the first question to ask is pretty much the same question I always ask, which is comics. Why comics? What is it about comics that attracts you, and what made you want to do comics professionally?
That's a good question. Because I grew up, I guess, reading comics, reading books. I read Tintin. You guys read Tintin?
Sure.
Asterix. The Beano, which is a British humor comic. Dennis the Menace. Minnie the Minx. All that kind of stuff. And also books, all kinds of books. I had my own library card. I go to the library and pick up books, whichever ones I wanted, and come home. And not only do I love stories, but I love to draw as well. So I'd lie down on my stomach in the front room with some pen, paper, pencils, whatever, and just draw, make up images, pictures, and tell stories in my head. So, but I love to draw, but I didn't really have any confidence in writing stories. So it wasn't until I went to art school, until I went to college, that I started to put the two together. And I started reading Japanese manga and lots of other things. There was other comics around that time, like Arkham Asylum and things that were supposed to be for grown-ups. And I thought, this is really exciting. I can draw. I like telling stories. So I started to put those two together. And also in combination with liking a certain kind of music, punk rock music, and within that scene, there's lots of people who photocopied. This is old technology, binary technology, but yeah, they made their own zines about their enthusiasm, about their interests, so music and stuff. So I kind of put all those together. Had drawing, began to put stories together, and I knew I could make my own. I didn't need to ask permission from anyone. I didn't need lots and lots of money to do it. I just had to sit down, draw it, go down to the photocopier, or now you just do it off your computer. I just copy out copies, and I had my own comic. And so that was really what interested me, was not only telling stories, but also just how easy it was to access. There was no, if you're making a movie, you need actors and you need cameras, you need lots of money and locations and stuff. Whereas if you can do the same thing with a comic, you get to create your own actors, you get to create your own characters, your own locations, tell whatever stories you want. And so that was really what really got me into it. It's just, there's so much you can do. There's the entire world, or different worlds, science fiction, slice of life stories, fantasy stories like Glister. You can do anything you want. All you have to do is sit down and pick up a pencil and apply it to some paper, and you're away.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. It's one of the most democratic of all art forms, I guess. You went to art school, you said. Did you go to art school, when you started going to art school, did you think comics are the thing that I'm going to do? Or did you go just to generally learn more about art?
Absolutely. I went to learn about art, really. I got a foundation in just, good drawing, all the basics of tone and learning to life draw and perspective and composition and color, using different materials, printing, painting, all kinds of stuff, drawing, dealing with kind of materials and making fabrics, doing all kinds of things. So yeah, it was really, I kind of went in with a very kind of broadest view of what I wanted to do. I didn't know what I wanted to do, and it was only right at the end that I decided to concentrate on comics, really. And for better or worse, I've continued from there. But yeah, I think art school grounding has been really good for me. I look outside comics and look towards literature, fine art, paintings, museums, all kinds of stuff like that, which college opened my eyes to, really. So yeah, I take all that, and a lot of those things went into Glister, actually. A lot of the architecture, the buildings, weird characters and things, yeah, all that appeared in Glister as well. So you can see some of that.
Yeah. The you're not that much younger than I am. And no, the only reason I say it that way is because when you were in art school, and when I started my comic shop, comics were not a respectable field, I suppose.
No.
Kind of at all. And I'm wondering if you spoke to your professors about your desire to do comics back then, and what their reaction was.
Well, interestingly, I had a couple of teachers. One of them was trying to warn me off comics. Maybe he was a wise person, but yeah, he was saying it's a very specific kind of world. It's a very kind of narrow kind of discipline, and said, you know, you don't want to go there. Whereas I had another teacher who was into manga, he was into Daniel Clowes, he was into Peter Bagg, all those, the Hernandez brothers, all the cool comics around at that time, the early 90s. And he was saying, yeah, go for it. So I had these two demons on my shoulder, the demon and the angel or whatever. And yeah, I guess the devil did win out in the end, and I went with comics. So for better or worse. But yeah, I mean, it's still not completely respectable. You'll still find people that will demean comics and say, therefore, people who aren't very bright or who can't read proper books or whatever, which is, of course, total nonsense. But yeah, things have changed an awful lot since then. And like, you would very rarely get children, kids like you, actually reading comics, and especially girls reading comics. This is like something that's changed an awful lot over the years, which I'm so pleased about. But and I've tried to provide comics for people like that as well, for all kinds of people, everyone, different genders, different ages, and do different kinds of stories for all kinds of different people. So that's one of the great things that's changed over the years. Besides getting older and creakier, the downsides, but the upsides are the way that comics has transformed, really.
Yeah, you comics came out in the 90s. You did Samurai Jam, Skeleton Key, clearly aimed at an older audience than what you're doing right now. What led you want to start doing the kids?
It was actually becoming a dad myself. When my daughter was born, I started reading bedtime stories. I started looking back at the kind of books I read when I was a kid. So the things that I liked were Joan Aitken, who does a lot of stories where the real world and magical world are intermingled without really any kind of, no one pays any attention. A Gorgon can live next door to someone who lives in a regular house in a regular village in the UK. And I was reading Alan Garner, who does a book called The Weird Stone of Brisingamen, and I'd really recommend anyone to pick that up if you can find a copy. Alan Garner's an amazing author. And, you know, people, books like this, it was when I was reading bedtime stories to my daughter that I started to think, well, at that time, there weren't that many comics for children, really, or for younger readers, anyone who didn't have some inappropriate material in. So yeah, I really wanted to do a book for her. There were even fewer comics really for girls. So yeah, I wanted to do something that she'd read, and I kind of mixed it with my own interests, which were kind of mixing the fantastic and the real together, and having a kind of a really interesting female character who'd be the lead as well. And yeah, that's really what kicked me off into doing kids comics. It was to provide something that I didn't feel was quite there, and something for my own daughter.
It's absolutely true, because you know I know that you guys see comics now and you see all the things that they're out there, but that didn't when before you were born, there weren't really comics for little girls other than just like Archie. That was pretty much it. It was Archie was what you were allowed to buy, and that was it. And now you've got the different books that you are purchasing or checking out. I think it's a pretty exciting time, and it's really super interesting the way that comics have changed. When you start a new project, or a new book, even, let's say, what's your approach when you're facing that blank page? When you're starting off and you've got nothing in front of you and it's time to start going.
Really kind of look at what kind of influences what kind of stuff I'm into at the time. So for at the time of Glister, like I say, I was reading these books from my own youth, and also books that my daughter was reading and was interested in. So that went into it. But also you also kind of hit the notebook. I have notebooks and sketchbooks. I write down ideas, anything that sparks off in my head. So with Glister, it was the idea initially of a ghost within a teapot and a writer who would haunt her and make her write his story for him. And then, of course, there's a twist in that it's not actually he after all. And also, so yeah, part of that as well was Jane Austen, one of my favorite authors. She's kind of was influenced in that she's not the original ghost, but she's the Philippa Vale afterwards as well. So yeah, there's all kinds of things that go in, all the interests that I'm into. So spooky houses, drawing weird architecture, having like monsters living in the pond, all that kind of stuff. So not only has it got to be so it's a starting point is really, yes, something for my daughter, but then mixing in all the things I'm into, all the things that are really interesting to draw, all the kind of weird ideas you can, and also the inspiration where you don't really know where the story is going initially, but it takes you in different areas. So initially in the first Glister story, it was a ghost who's a man, and then there was this backstory behind it, which was influenced by the real Jane Austen, where it wasn't really respectable for women at that time in the 18th century to write, so she'd have to hide her writing every time a servant or someone came into the room. So that was a good idea. It was an idea that fed back into the Glister books because, again, yeah, she was kind of hiding behind a different ghost, and also in real life she was kind of hiding what she was really about as well.
So how much pre-planning do you do for an individual book? When you're starting off, did you know where the first Glister story was going to go all the way beginning to end, or were you more making it up as you went along?
It's kind of a mixture of both. You want a vague idea of where the story's going to go, but also you want enough freedom to take it in different directions and do different fun things along the way, because it takes, for each Glister story, they're about 60 pages, so it took maybe 2 months of work. So you want to have a path that you're going to follow. You know you're going to go from A to B, but also you want to have some freedom to do fun things along the way as well. But yeah, it really starts with notebooks, scribbling down ideas, and then the work really begins. I write a script, type it out, kind of break it down into pages. Then I go from there into layout to do little thumbnails of each page and each panel to try and work out the pacing and what the important bits are going to be and what the fun things are going to draw. And then do the research on different kind of buildings or reference points, look on Google Images for all kinds of different fun things that are going to be to draw, and then lettering, penciling, inking, the whole long process. So really, Glister book, what you see on the pages there is like the tip of the iceberg. There's all the work that's underneath that you don't see, the ideas that were cast aside and the pages that didn't make it and all kinds of things like that. So yeah, comics, incredibly labor intensive, just so much work. But yeah, there's just been pages and pages of roughs and sketches and all kinds of stuff, all the other bits and bobs that didn't make it to the final story. So you see the Glister book there is like this thick, but the actual work that went into it that you don't see is like that much. There's you know, pages and pages, piles.
Yeah. How soon into the first book did you know that you had a second and a third and a fourth book?
Yeah, as soon as I started, really, I was scribbling down ideas. There were so many things I was wanting to do, and the way that it kind of developed as it went on. So the first story, there's this girl who's alone with her father. So by the second story, I'm thinking, okay, this house is interesting. What more can I do with this house? What things are going on? And in my own real life at that time, we were moving house. So I was thinking, and it was so there's that kind of worry about moving house, and my daughter also had to change schools. So there was all this kind of anxiety that ended up in the book, because I wanted to reflect that in Glister's life. She ends up moving house, and then she loses her house. It's like she's losing her friends when she's changing school. So real life things fed into the book as well. And in the third book, I was really interested in a folk tale called Temlin, which is about a woman who travels to the fairy world to rescue her lover, her boyfriend, and bring him back. She has to rescue him. So again, it's like an Orpheus story in the fairyland story in Glister, that Glister has to go into the fairyland, rescue her mother and bring her back safely, in theory. So yeah, there's all these real world things that fed into it. which is the fun of doing, of any creative thing. You all the different things that go into the mix as you're working.
Yeah, absolutely. Do any of you guys have any questions? I can keep asking questions all day long, but we're here for you guys just as much. You don't know? Okay, that's cool.
Can I ask you guys a question?
Please do.
So, if you could have any room in Chilblain Hall, what would it be? What kind of special room would you have? So you think about that for a minute. I'm going to tell you what I'd have. I'd have a music room. So I'd have a room where I could step in at any day, at any time, and there'd be a real musician there to play music. So one day it might be Mozart playing on a harpsichord, or maybe it'd be Beethoven composing a symphony, or maybe I'd have some loud punk rock music like Black Flag playing with sweaty men, playing really loud music. So I think that'd be my favorite room. Have you guys got any ideas for what your favorite room would be?
Anyone? Yeah?
A library.
A library, fantastic.
What, like anything special about the library? Okay.
How many books would you have, do you reckon? If I had a library, I'd have 1,000 books. If I had room, I've got enough books in my studio, maybe a couple of hundred. But if I had my own library, I'd have thousands. That'd be great, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Just pick up any book.
Library that had multiple floors and that you like needed ramps to go up, around to the next floor. That's the kind of library I want.
Yeah, it's so big you need a cherry picker to come up and
exactly.
down.
Exactly. You can't even read everything, and then there's so many books. That would be the best library in the world. Yeah. Yeah.
Infinite library / zoo.
/zoo. Wow. Okay. So there would be animals living in the library. That's cool. I like that idea.
Nice idea. Would there be zookeepers to clean up the mess? Do you reckon, or would you have to do that yourself?
Yes. Zoo. So true. Me too. I'd maybe have a pet room with robots that feed the pets and clean the cages.
Okay, what kind of pets would you have?
Probably a lizard. Some of those tiny frogs you can find in San Rafael. A dog, for sure.
Is any danger as some of your pets might try and eat some of your other pets? Would the lizards try and eat the frogs, or would they have to have their own special areas?
The frog would have to be in one corner, the dog would have to be in another corner, and the lizards would have space else.
So if you had a dog, would you have to take it for walks yourself, or would you have someone come in to take it walks for you if it was raining or really cold or miserable?
If it's really cold, I mean, if it's raining, because summer in San Francisco is always kind of miserable thanks to the fog, I think I'd probably have the robot go take it for a walk. Waterproof one. Wearing a poncho.
Nice,
yeah.
Yeah, you wouldn't want your robot short-circuiting in the rain or the fog or anything. That'd be bad.
All right. Other questions from you guys? You guys have questions? You have a question?
Is there a specific reason why you made each chapter of the book one color?
Yeah, I tried to, because I did each book separately and together they're put together in this single book here. I tried to do a color that reflected what was in the story, and each book was different. So with the family tree, I wanted to do like a greenish olive, so it reflected like leaves on a tree or something like that. And also the house hunt story, kind of a nice kind of cold blue, because Glister is kind of lonely in parts of that and a bit sad. So yeah, but also I just wanted to have colors that were dark enough that there was enough contrast between the lines and the tones, and and nice colors as well. Really went through something called a Pantone catalog, where there's all these different colors and you get to choose them. So that was really fun, just to choose all the different colors.
Did you was it difficult to settle on colors that like printed well? Certain shades of say yellow or something wouldn't print very good.
Yeah, exactly. You can't use like super light colors because it wouldn't come out. The lines wouldn't pop, and there wouldn't be enough contrast between the tones as well. So So yeah, have to be careful which ones you choose, so they're not too dull, but they're not too bright. So yeah, but it was fun going through and choosing different ideas. They were like, yeah, different blues or different greens, and yeah, I got a bit picky about all the different choices. It's a bit bewildering. You have so many choices. The Pantone catalog is just like a whole rainbow. But yeah, I managed to settle on those, and I think they look pretty nice together.
Yeah, I agree. You guys agree? Yeah, yeah, cool. How do you work? Do you work digital? Do you work on pen and paper? How do you work?
I still work with pen and paper and pencils, just because that's how I kind of grew up, and that's where all the pleasure is for me, is putting marks onto paper, and yeah, just using different pens and different brushes and using different techniques. That's still what's really fun to me. And staring at a screen all day, I do enough of that as it is. So if I can do something on real on paper or whatever, then yeah, I'll choose that, just because I feel it's more accurate and there's more connection with the just putting a pen onto paper or a pencil onto paper. It just seems to work better for me. But I didn't grow up digital. I grew up before there were computers. That's how old I am. So but yeah, I still use computers to apply color and also to do the gray tones, kind of mid-tones on the Glister books. You can see there's kind of black dark lines and then kind of a grayish or mid-tones, and that helps give, I do that on the computer, and it helps give it like a 3D, kind of give it some shape rather than being too flat otherwise.
How about your lettering? Is your lettering looks like hand lettering to me? Yeah.
Yeah, this is the first book that I tried to hand letter, so it was a bit of a learning curve, but it's really fun. I've hand lettered everything since. It's just one of those things about comics that makes them special. Your own kind of handwriting or your own type is kind of unique to you, and it adds more personality to the book. So yeah, and also I did it lowercase, which is, you know, kind of instead of capitals, a lot of comics they're capitaled all the way through, which is a bit like shouting, but I wanted it to be more friendly and approachable, so do it lowercase. And also yeah, I think rather than using a type from the computer, using hand-drawn, hand-lettered stuff, it's difficult, but it's a lot more approachable and friendly and warmer, I think.
Yeah. Originally, the first Glister appeared in the US. It was serialized as a comic book by Image.
That's right.
But not the next couple. Those were, as I understand it, done exclusively as books in the UK.
That's right. I got an opportunity to work with a publisher called Walker Books in the UK, and they said, yeah, let's do more of these. So I jumped at the chance, and they wanted to bring some color into it and also do some extra stories and things in the back, which are in this book here. And so yeah, I did some, which were unique to the UK, and now it's come full circle, and they're in a collection which are in comic shops again, because the ones that I did in the UK were mostly in bookshops, so they didn't kind of they didn't reach as many people as I'd like. But now it's come full circle, so yeah, they're back in comic shops where they should be, I guess, and hopefully reaching as many people as possible.
What's the difference for you in doing a serialized story and doing a self-contained graphic novel? Are you using different muscles? Or do you, because you've done serialized comics your whole life, still kind of think of them in terms of 20, 30 page chunks?
It's interesting you should use the muscle metaphor, because I think my serialized muscles have atrophied completely. I haven't done a serialized story for quite a long time now, so my brain, it's kind of set in a way it thinks of a story at beginning, middle, and end, some kind of solution, or comes to a conclusion. So I seem to have adopted a graphic novel frame of mind, if you like, rather than a serialized frame of mind. I mean, I love doing serialized comics. I did a comic called Skeleton Key, which went for 30 issues for a few years, and I really enjoyed that, but I seem to have lost that ability somewhere along the way. Now I'm kind of just into a way of thinking that begins and has an ending, and it's quite nice to have an ending in mind. It helps to structure a story and also work out the themes and ideas and stuff, whereas a serialized story, it's less containable. It's always spilling out, and there's stray storage strands and stuff. So it's a bit more messy, and that's one of the good things about it. But yeah, I mean, I think both are really good ways of working, but I seem to have falling into the graphic novel way now.
Mm-hmm. Makes a lot of sense. Any other questions in the room? Come on, you guys. There's 4 stories in this book. You must have a single question.
Who's got a favorite story out of the 4? Anyone?
We were talking about this a little bit, yeah.
I like the one with when the house runs away.
Why is that?
Because I like all the house's adventures and like Eiffel Tower.
That's cool. Did you recognize all those buildings?
Yes, I think so.
Because there's some of the Kremlin Palace, I think, from Moscow, and the Guggenheim Museum in Bilbao. All kinds of different things. Yeah, I threw all kinds of things in there. That was fun.
So do you like architecture in general?
I think.
Good. Your favorite?
I liked the haunted teapot.
Why is that? What do you like about the haunted teapot? Would you want your own haunted teapot?
Would you like your own haunted teapot?
Oh, maybe not. It depends on the ghost.
Depends on the ghost, yeah.
Would you prefer the boy ghost or the girl ghost to be your friend?
Ghost.
Okay, cool.
I liked the family tree one. There's just the bunnies that eat everything. And this annoying cousin who plays the guitar. He's complaining that the bunnies are eating his shoes.
If you go ahead, sorry.
Go ahead, Eddie.
I was going to ask, is there any relatives you'd like to grow on a tree? Or was there any relatives you'd like to lose on a tree? Up a tree, even.
Oh, good. All right. It's the right kind of answer. I'm sure your relatives really like that. You.
Chapters.
You like all of them.
That's good. That's a fantastic answer. So have you guys got any ideas that you think I should do with Glister in future? Is there anything you'd like to see her do? I've got a pencil here and some paper, and I'm going to write them down if you do, and I may borrow them. So let me know. Have you got any?
What if she discovers a whole horde of stray animals and starts bringing them in? But as the other animals start to notice, all sorts start taking home the house.
Wow, you thought
like a goblin, some monsters, something lives in the furnace.
Monster furnace, fantastic. I'm writing this down. That'd be a lot of fun to draw as well.
Anyone else have any ideas? Yeah. That would be a lot of fun research for old buildings and old clothes and things.
I lost you there a minute. Sorry.
Oh, she said it, maybe a story where Glister travels back in time.
Yeah, that's a nice idea. Fantastic.
And then I was saying that would give you a lot of opportunities to do research on old clothes and old vehicles and old buildings.
Doing that, that'd be good. So you guys, have you got any favorite books you like that you would recommend to me? Because I'm looking at new things to read. Have you got any favorite books that you think you'd read?
I have a graphic novel that I just recently watched. Here's Stop. It's about a book that gets taken to the afterlife extent.
Sounds good.
Skeleton Horse.
Skeleton Horse.
Skeleton Horse, yeah. Oh.
I'm writing this down.
I like Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. That's my favorite book.
Other one. My grandmother is reading me a series. I don't know what it's called. The first one is Work Again, and it's about these children trip to come back. Their town has been raided by runners, and they're the only ones that are left out. So they have to not get caught and to run. It's really
It sounds good. It sounds really interesting.
Sounds really interesting, yeah. What else? Probably knows. You probably know Harry Potter. You probably heard of this Potter chap.
I have read them once or twice. Yes, I have. Yeah, I have enjoyed them as well. So yeah, they're very good.
I've read it a lot of times.
Yeah.
Depending on the age of your daughter, I imagine you read them out loud.
I did, and then she took over. She didn't want me to read them anymore. By the Order of the Phoenix or something like that, I was dust. She was off on her own. Yeah, so that was fantastic. Really, that great moment where she was done with me reading to her, and she wanted to read on her own and find out what was happening. That was good.
Yeah. Actually, this brings me to an interesting question. What did your daughter think of Glister?
I think she liked it, and now she's 15, so she's a little too old for it, but I think she still thinks it's kind of cool that she was influencing or an inspiration to be in a comic book. But it's hard to tell with 15-year-olds what they're enthusiastic about. So, and dads are never cool. So but yeah, I think
that's really true. We are never cool. Have you tried to show her any of your older comics? Because at 15 she's probably about ready for Skeleton King.
She is, and I'm careful not to try and force comics on her, because it will only put her off more. So if she comes to it herself or she's interested in things, then I'm more than willing to encourage her. But one of those things, if you tell her what your band is, she's bound to avoid it, or any of you kids avoid them. So it's the same thing. But yeah, she is off on her own reading all kinds of cool books and novels and things. She in fact just read Catch 22, so she's already reading,
There you go.
challenging stuff.
So I saw when I was doing the little research for the interview that you've got another series that you're working on with Walker, I believe, Gum Girl.
That's right.
A superheroine with gum-based powers. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yeah, there's been 4 books of that, and it's for a slightly younger audience maybe than Glister, but it's about a girl called Grace who discovers amazing gum, which allows her to do fantastic powers, and she fights all kinds of baddies like Caesar Salad, who tries to make children eat healthily, and things like that. So yeah, there's all kind of fun baddies that she has to defeat using powers. But yeah, that's been there's been a lot of fun, and it's nice to have a female superhero who's cool and capable and all those kind of things.
Yeah. Is that something that we're going to see here in the US?
I hope so. I've been talking to publishers, and hopefully something will happen. But publishing, it moves at a very slow pace. It took a while to get the Glister books out, but yeah, hopefully the Gum Girl will be next. They're in full color as well, so it'll be nice to have them all together in one volume, because there's 4 books again, another like 300 pages of material, so it'd be fantastic to have those out.
Yeah, that makes
Sorry, I didn't catch that. It cut out a bit.
Does Glister look like your daughter?
She does a bit. She's not got blonde hair. She's got brown hair, and it's never been quite that short. It's always been quite long. But yeah, all the dresses and things were influenced by her. She used to, wear quite the girly, nice dresses when she was quite young, and now it's all jeans and stuff. But yeah, that was an influence, and I love drawing those things, all the details of the clothing and things. It was one of the most things about. It's one of the good things about drawing female characters, actually, because they styles of costuming and so many different styles of clothes. Whereas when you're drawing boys, it's shorts or it's trousers, so there's not much variation in that. Whereas there's more things you can draw with when you're doing female characters.
So I guess let's maybe wrap this up with you were taking suggestions for new Glister books. Does that mean that you've got more Glister books in the future?
I've certainly got lots of ideas for them. We'll see how things pan out. But yeah, I'd love to do more if the opportunity arose and things worked out that way with the publishing world. And it'd be great to see the Gum Girl books out as well. But I'm also working on stuff for grown-ups as well. I kind of switch back and forth doing different things. So yeah, that's also working on a long, a long story for grown-ups, which is working out to be at least 200 pages or something. So that's taken a while. But once that's out of the way, it'd be nice to get back and do some Glister or do some more Gum Girl or something like that. That'd be fantastic.
Do you have a US publisher for the adult comic?
Not yet, no. I'm going to try and get it finished and then start asking around and see what happens. But yeah, we'll see. It's interesting times. There's a lot of different publishers, and yet things are always uncertain in comics. So yeah, we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, I mean, you've had nearly a 30-year career. It's more like 25 years, I guess,
Yes.
in comics. I mean, that's a tremendous amount of time, and the business has changed in many ways. Do you feel that the business has changed for the better?
In some ways, it's kind of. In some way, it's kind of the same. Yeah, in a lot of ways, it has changed for the better. The graphic novel has developed and bloomed really, and really reached more and more different, wider audience, which is fantastic. And also, but you could say that Superman and Batman are still doing the same things they ever did.
Yeah.
But that's just the way it is. And yeah, so there are these two different streams. There is the traditional comic book route, I guess, where Batman beats up the Joker every week or every month. And then there's this whole other world of graphic novels, which is kind of expanding. So yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah, I have a question that was handwritten to me on a piece of paper. Is this from the internet, Doug, or is this from you? It's from Doug. It's from Doug, my store manager. He wants to know if all of Skeleton Key is ever going to get collected.
That is a good question, and I have had talks with publishers about it, but it's come together yet. I would love for it to. I mean, I think it'd be a great book. It's a fantastic. There's 30 issues. That's how many pages? I don't know, 500 pages or something. I think it'd make a fantastic collection. But I haven't persuaded anyone to take it on yet. But I guess it's quite a big. But maybe 500, 600 pages. It'd be fantastic to get it out there, but no takers yet, but fingers crossed, maybe in future, I hope. Do
you still have all the original art and stuff from that? I mean, would it be an easy thing to put together? Because, you know, obviously, since most comics are being done on computer these days, you don't have to worry about keeping the original artwork. But stuff that's 30 years old probably isn't scanned and probably isn't ready for today's production methods. So I'm curious, like, what's the state of your archives?
My statement goes, if I just look over to my it's in a big book and they're all there still, but I do have those pages. I have everything scanned. I just kind of was on the cusp of using computers right at the start, so everything is kind of archived, even if it's not incredibly high resolution. But yeah, everything's saved on a hard drive, so I do have an archive. And because going back, trying to scan those A3 pages, which are like, I don't know, yay big, in 2 sections on a scanner, and then putting them together on the computer for 600 would be rather a lot of work. So yeah, it's a nightmare I wouldn't want to take on very easily. But yeah, fortunately, the stuff is available. It's all there digitally. Short of the house burn, it's all good.
So, and then this will be my last question. And I apologize because you kids are probably not going to care about this answer very much, but I kind of do. When you started off, you were doing very much do-it-yourself comics with small publishers, slave labor. It's a very punk rock kind of comic. Today, you're working with graphic novel publishers, which are kind of more formal and organized. In the middle there, you worked for a little tiny while for Marvel and DC Comics doing corporate comics, doing Namor the Submariner with Bill Jemas of all people for a year. I'm really curious about making the move from being very do-it-yourself to working on these corporate ideas. Was that a difficult transition for you, or is it all just good fun because it's comics?
Both, really. It is good fun, and you always try and have fun whenever possible. But within the corporate comics, you're kind of handed down what you're supposed to do. You're not really given a free rein. And also, it was kind of the corporate stuff. Marvel Comics, it's kind of a job, a paying job, which is nice. It's always nice to get paid, especially. But yeah, it is kind of more like work. I don't have a great love of Namor or Spider-Man or whatever. I just didn't grow up particularly reading those comics or enjoying them. So, whereas some people, it's a dream job. It's their childhood dream to do that. For me, that's not the case, but it was still fun. And working in that era of Marvel where things were kind of up in the air. This was pre-Marvel movies when their financial situation was slightly more shaky, and this guy, Bill Jemas, was running the company and he was trying all kinds of different things. I found it a really interesting time. I don't think the traditional fans really enjoyed it that much, but yeah, I found it fun when someone was shaking things up and doing things differently. Not everything worked, and probably quite a few, not many of them worked, but yeah, I found that more interesting than grinding stuff out, the same way month after month. But that was just my view. But yeah, and working for graphic novel publishers, you have to work further ahead. You finish the book and it's published a year later. Working for independent comics, SLG or whatever, you did the comic and it came out a couple of weeks later. There's this fast turnaround, and that's exciting, and that's really good. And yeah, like you say, things are slightly more organized with the graphic novels and stuff. The two great worlds, and I've enjoyed both. It's been fun.
Yeah. Very nice. I want to thank you for taking the time to talk to us, Andy. I want to thank you for Glister. Because I want to say, I think you're an immaculate cartoonist. I think you have an amazing level of craft and just a fun sense of wonder and humor that really comes through in Glister. And I'm reasonably for everyone here that if you did more Glister books, we would love to read them. Yeah. Yeah. There you go. And just the best of luck to you in your career. And thank you so much for coming out and being willing to talk to us.
Well, thanks so much for having me on. I apologize deeply for the technical issues. I'm sorry to keep you waiting. And you guys, and thank you for coming out on a Sunday morning. How dedicated are you when most people are probably in bed, having a lie-in, still asleep, but you came out and listened to me drone on at length about Glister. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Our pleasure. I want to do a couple of quick announcements here for the club. The next book, which you guys can actually pick up today, you're going to get it 4 or 5 days earlier than anyone else because you're here. See, that's what you get for showing up. Our next book is Water Memory. This is a book by 2 French authors. As a result, because it's 2 French authors, we're actually not having a meeting next month because they don't speak English at all. And so we would have to have everything translated and it would be on video. And I just thought that's not going to work. But the book is really, really good. And I think you guys are going to like this book a lot. The book is in English. It's been translated by someone here in America. So don't worry, you can read it. But the authors themselves don't speak any English themselves, which it's kind of interesting, right? Like they wrote a book in French that got translated and you guys are going to get to read it. I think that'll be interesting. See when you read it if you can detect a difference in language, maybe. Okay. I don't think you will be able to, but let's see. And then the month after that, our book after that will be All's Fair in Middle School by Victoria Jameson, who also did Roller Girl, which some of you have probably read, which is also a great book. Victoria Jameson is going to be here on October 22nd. You'll get an email about this, so you don't have to remember this, but that'll be our next meeting. She will be here in person, and I'm really, really looking forward to that because I think she's a great cartoonist, and this book is really fantastic. You guys are going to love both of these upcoming choices. So thank all of you for coming out. Thank you again, Andy, for being our guest. And we'll see you all next month. We'll see you all in 2 months, 6 weeks for the next meeting. Thank you very much, and we'll talk soon.